You're listening to the Mildred Gaddis Show, brought to you by UAW Ford. Now, back to the Mildred Gaddis Show on 102.7 WPZR.
He was unapologetically black. He was brilliant. He was funny. And he was committed to making the world better than he found it. The Mildred Gaddis Show celebrates the life of Dick Gregory.
That is the only sport in the world where a Negro can shake a stick at a white man and won't start no riot. Of course, now, don't get me wrong now. We doing all right. Hell, at the rate we going 10 years from now, you might have to be my color to get a job. I mean, let's face it, they're not making man tan for nothing. And you heard what Bobby Kennedy said about 8 weeks ago. He said 30 years from this year, a Negro can become president. So treat me right, or I'll get in there and raise taxes on you. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind paying my income tax if I knew it was going to a friendly country. And we have a lot of racial prejudice up north, but we're so clever with it. Take my hometown, Chicago. I mean, you can't see it just going in there. When the Negroes in Chicago move into one large area and it looked like we might control the votes, they don't say anything to us. They have a slum clearance. You do the same thing on the West Coast, but you call it freeways. Well, anybody here from Chicago? Where do you live in Chicago? South Side. South Side, whereabouts? North Side? Lawrence, yeah. How long you been away? 7 years. You're in a hell of a surprise if you ever go back. My brother just moved in there. That's it.
Dick, with this new Negro humor, what is the white man laughing about?
I think the white man is laughing at the same thing a person laughs at when they slam their hand in the car door and when it's about to heal. The problem is almost over. As Martin Luther King said, Jim Crow is dead in the South. It's just a matter of how expensive they want to make the funeral. You can always laugh at problems that's right. Everyone in the whole world knows this is a wrong. So then you can make humor out of this, and matter of fact, you're enlightening people on just what's going on. No one actually knows the Negro problem. The average white man meets a Negro at work when we're in an inferiority position. You hear a lot of Southerners say, well, the Negroes that I've been around, they say they want segregation. They don't want to move into our schools. Well, this is what I call taking the fifth. If Jimmy Hoffa and all the big hoodlums can take the fifth, then how come we can't take the fifth? We don't even take the first when we can't get the 14th. And this is just a matter of fact. It's the same bit in the South. And up north, you know, colored fellow working with me is one of the most intelligent fellows I've ever met. Well, who is he talking about? The janitor, the maid? He give him any tips on stock? He know what's going on in world problems? This has been a bit where we say he's intelligent to make up for not letting him go to school. And this is the way we've been doing this. Some of my best friends are colored. Well, this is not true. They don't take their best friend anywhere. They don't take them out on Saturday night. They still enter through the back door, so how could this be a best friend? And a lot of them, they don't even know the best friend's last name, just the first name that they've been calling him by for 40 years. They don't know nothing about his family, nothing about his problems.
Our problems don't always show. But even here in a Chicago neighborhood where Negroes equal whites economically, you'll find we're more disillusioned about the idea of white superiority than we were before we made it.
I beg to differ with your use of the word unfortunate. Brown, I thought we had progressed way beyond the term of unfortunate.
But we have not. Dolores, we have not.
But
the unfortunate thing is that while we are 100 years beyond the Civil War, the basic frame of reference, the basic value system of American culture says positively, unequivocally, if you're black, get back. If you're white, you're right. If you're brown, stick around.
May I interrupt you?
Yes?
I am neither black nor white. Where do I go?
Well, you are what we must all some people call in the French, I guess, and that perhaps this is the reason why French is the language of diplomacy.
Later during this segment of the Mildred Gaddis Show, we're going to share with you a strong perspective on who Dick Gregory, the man, was. It will certainly widen your understanding of why he could not stop calling America out for who America is. You'll understand some of the incidents and events in his life that made him the man he became. It is a special by presentation of Unsung on Dick Gregory, delivered by TV One. And I think that you'll really understand it. We continue in our celebration in the life of Dick Gregory.
Everyone will change. Everything will change. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. No, no. Everyone must change. Nothing stays the same. The young become the old. Mysteries do unfold. 'Cause that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the clouds and sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Winter turns to spring. Wounded heart will heal. Yes, it will. But never much too soon. Everything must change. The young become the old. Mysteries do unfold. 'Cause that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. And there are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain falls from the clouds and sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly.
8:35 here on the Mildred Gaddis Show as we celebrate and honor the great life and legacy of the late Dick Gregory. We travel now down to the Deep South to check in with attorney and City Councilwoman Deborah Delgado in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Good morning.
Good morning.
I thought I'd check in with you. I was telling these young people here in the studio, Markel and Dominique, about how we were movement kids. We were out there in it, and we're so attached to what was happening in this country. What I want you to share with our listeners is the contribution and why it's important that a Dick Gregory came this way.
Well, it's important because Dick Gregory was someone who had a national stage, and he played it well. He was the kind of celebrity, or he used his celebrity for the good of his people. I can remember so many articles that I read as a young person, either written by Dick Gregory or that were about him, that inspired me just on so many levels. He was not afraid to challenge issues of race and our place in this country and in the world. He's somebody who, when he spoke, I always listened.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading an article by one of our friends, a little writing by one of our friends, Glenda Funches, very early this morning, that talked about Mr. Gregory's role in the release of the young man who tried to get into the University of Southern Mississippi, Clyde Kennard, several times back during the time that the university was segregated, and for him to reach all the way down in Hattiesburg and contribute to trying to make sure that justice was done was really important to us.
You know, I'll tell you another Mississippi story concerning Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory's wife was pregnant, and he was in Jackson and in the boondocks helping Medgar Evers.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Gregory's wife called Medgar, because that was how she was able to get hold of Dick, to let him know that she had given birth and the baby had died. And so Medgar told Dick Gregory, "You need to go home." And Dick Gregory said, "I can't do nothing about it. I'm not having the baby." Medgar then informed him that he said, "You've lost a son. Your baby has died." Dick Gregory then decided to go home. He hugged Medgar Evers, and he said, "Brother, I love you. In 2 weeks, you'll be gone." That's what Dick Gregory said to Medgar Evers. And as time would have it, Medgar was assassinated. And that was Dick Gregory's last time seeing him. So Dick Gregory said that he knew, after being in Mississippi and the climate and the work that they were doing, and that Medgar Evers had become such a tremendous threat to the power structure that they would kill him. And that was one of the reasons he said he did not want to leave Medgar. But once Medgar went on and said, "Well, you've lost your son. You need to go home and be with your wife," Dick said he hugged him, and he said, told him that he said, "In 2 weeks you'll be gone." And that's the other one of those other Mississippi stories concerning the late Dick Gregory. But you know what was so amazing, and I don't know if you know this story. Dick Gregory went on the Jack Parr show. I think it was Jack Parr. He was the first black comedian to be on national television.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, after comedians performed, they would then sit on the couch like they do today with the host. Dick Gregory was not allowed to sit on the couch. He walked 95 blocks home crying about being denied that opportunity, and made a commitment to himself that he would never, ever do another appearance on a talk show on American television if he was not treated like every other comedian and allowed to sit on the couch and have an exchange.
Wow.
And it shifted.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and it shifted the dynamics. And, he was there before before Richard Pryor and before Bill Cosby. He was he was definitely the trailblazer.
Absolutely, absolutely. My goodness, I just can't imagine, that I guess my history without him, because he certainly was an inspiration to me. When, as a younger person, I was going to be speaking somewhere, or if I knew that I would be engaged in any kind of civic conversation, many times during the time that we were growing up, it was around race and issues of integration and all of the violence that was being exacted upon our communities. And as young people, we were expected to know, or at least to learn what was going on and to be conscious of those things that were happening in the world and around us. And Dick Gregory was always a good source of material for me. I can remember I was on what the Catholic Youth Organization called a panel of American youth at one of our conventions, and it that I was given had to do with integration of neighborhoods. And in doing my research, I found a quote from Dick Gregory that I used right in my presentation, and it caused quite a ruckus because his question was, why integration? Or what's so good about white folks that you want to live next door to them anyway? And for me to say that as I think I was maybe 15 or 16-year-old in an audience that was 80% white adults, it was really a problem and was a lightning rod. But certainly I got through it and was better for it.
I look back now, and it's amazing, and it was truly a gift. Because growing up where we grew up and having been born in that part of the country, I remember my grandmother taking me to a mass meeting. That's how I got to see Fannie Lou Hamer, Sweet Pilgrim Baptist Church. So,
oh my goodness.
Yes, and that was my Fannie Lou Hamer experience. She was a speaker at a mass meeting. Now, for those in this part of the country who don't know what mass meetings are, that's when all the black folk got together to develop their game plan for parity, for equality in this country. It was our meeting. This is our game plan. This is what we're going to do. And Fannie Lou Hamer was there. But it was normal and natural for us to be a part of this. And, I remember having a speech teacher ask him, she said to me one time over at Hawkins Junior High School at the time, she said, you just have a one-track mind, don't you? Because every time there was time to write a speech, it was about blacks and whites in America and discrimination and racism. But when I think now, it was brave, but it was normal. Mm-hmm. It was normal for us.
Right.
I mean, nothing.
It was your life.
Nothing else was an option. I mean, that was who we were, and we're hard pressed today in America. D.L. Hughley is probably the one comedian who comes closest in terms of having being a race man. And I don't say race man as the way that some people want to call playing the race card. I mean a race man.
Absolutely.
Who,
I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
He is definitely one. I hope he stays the course. Yes. And it's a shame I can't point to anybody else right now. Dick Gregory's gone. DL is emerging, certainly as that comedian who deals with race straight in the faces of America. I could not do this tribute today without calling you to have you share your opinions and your memories of this great man.
There was one other thing, Mildred, that I recall.
Okay.
When he started to look at his health and what we put into our bodies, I can distinctly remember thinking that this is something that I need to pay attention to, because Dick Gregory at one time was a robust figure, you know?
Yes.
And I can remember when he started to look at what we put into our bodies and how there needs to be changes if we're going to live long.
I remember that Bahamian diet.
Absolutely.
I think we all tried the Bahamian diet. We sure did. But you're right. And every time I saw him, he was getting leaner and leaner. But you're right. He was on the national stage. He was the first black who said, come on, people. We got to do better than this. If we want to live, we want to be healthy, if we want to be around for our children and our families, we got to let some things go in terms of this stuff we're putting in our bodies that are detrimental to our longevity and good health.
Absolutely.
Attorney and Councilwoman Deborah Delgado from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, I thank you. I thank you for sharing.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye. You know what? I think we're going to take Mike before we go to Unsung. Mike, you're on the Mildred Gaddis Show.
Hello, Mildred. How you doing today?
I'm great, thank you.
Hey, I got a few stories I'd like to share with you about Dick Gregory.
If you can share one, that would be great.
Okay, well, this one is in 1965 when New Orleans flooded, and Dick Gregory filled up a cargo plane with health items and food and everything for the people down there. That was in 1965.
1965.
In 1968, Dick Gregory ran for president, and he had campaign literature that was the size of $1. And we used to take those things and put them into, the dollar machines wasn't that sophisticated then. We used to put them in there and get $1 worth of change and eat our lunch with it.
You know what? You're absolutely right. And there is, and this may very well come up in one of these pieces we're going to do to share with you about Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory took that dollar bill and put his face in the center. And of course, somebody came a-knocking from the Department of the Treasury. It turned out that there was one thing that he did that made what he did with the dollar bill legal. It's a funny thing, and we may very well share that story with you. But I want you to to focus on where we're going now, because I think this is you'll find it very informative and delightful.
Richard Claxton Gregory was born in St. Louis, Missouri on October 12, 1932, the second of 6 children, all of them raised by a single mom.
Everybody, white folks, black folks, knew who I was, except my mother. My mother named me Richard. She didn't know white folk call you Dick.
Dick's mother, Lucille, cleaned houses and did whatever it took to get by.
She basically worked most of the time because my father had left the house. So we basically just had to run in the house,
My mother is in white folks' kitchen. She's not home when we come home. Sometimes she's not home when we go to bed.
The problem is rather than you have a dad there, the boys become the man of the house.
Preston Gregory would come around occasionally, but his presence only caused pain and confusion.
Saw him hit her, and she's crying and hollering. And then 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear strange sounds coming out the room. But that's a child. It's a child.
Richard was 9 years old the last time he saw the man known as Big Prez, and he went at him with a knife.
It was a butter knife. Wasn't no dagger. It should have been there's a butter knife. That damn butter knife didn't even cut butter.
Richard Gregory fought his dad just once, but by the time he went to high school, he was fighting every day.
I was skinny, nappy hair, black, so I got picked on. So then I realized that when I see him coming, if I start talking about them before they talk about me, the crowd laughs.
He was the type of guy that he had a lot of wit. It was almost like a defense mechanism.
Especially if there were boys that he knew could beat him up. So he used laughter a lot.
And I did it so good, I became the king of it. Juvenile gangs. They see me coming, they move on the other side of the street. So then I realized The attitude and words is more powerful than a gun.
As his confidence grew, so did Dick's body. He began running track.
He became the center of attention because of his athletic ability. He was elected the outstanding student of Sumner High School, and he was also elected senior class president.
In high school, Gregory took on another role, activist.
The school is 125 years old, built for 500 white folks. When I get there, we had 3,000 students, had not been one brick added. I had classes where there was 200 people in a class. By the time the teacher finished calling the roll, it was over.
The students decided they were just going to stage a walkout. Dick said, no. Because we can just be accused of just leaving school. And they organized the 3 schools, and that rather than just walking out, they would march on the Board of Education.
The next year, the city added buildings to ease the overcrowding. Gregory's activism would continue at Southern Illinois University, where he landed a scholarship to run track.
The first time I've been around white folks. When I got there, I had ran the fastest mile of anybody in the world that year. I didn't get credit because I was at the all-Negro meet. They didn't count that. You see, lane 1 is way in the back, and lane 9 is out front. So white folks look at that and think I got an advantage.
Gregory would go on to set university records in track. He would also lead protests for integration. Then, in 1954, the Army came calling.
He was drafted after his junior year. He went away for 2 years.
While stationed in Fort Lee, Virginia, Gregory caught an unexpected break.
I became the General Flunky. Oh, God. I would get the light his cigar. I was funny. The general loved me. I was so funny. Funny.
So funny that the general ordered Gregory to perform for the base talent show.
He said, well, he better be at the PX tonight and he better be funny. That was my first gig. It don't take much to make a soldier laugh. I walked on stage and said, oh, I was arrested today for impersonating the officers. I slept till 12 noon. Soldiers went crazy. Oh, my God, I think this is what I'd like to do for the rest of my life. I can't believe this.
When he got out of the Army, Gregory moved to Chicago, determined to make it as a comic.
So I go to this little nightclub. I pay the MC to let me on and introduce me as this fantastic comedian from New York. I ain't never been to New York. And then I come back the next week, and they hire me.
$10 a night. They work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and earn $30.
You could sit for 3 shows. All you had to do is buy 1 bottle of beer. Now I stand flat-footed and stand up on that stage for 5 hours. That's where I started developing. Timing.
Excuse me. I have to smoke heavy. I made the great mistake of writing off 180 cartons on my income tax. And the Internal Revenue boys told me every time they see me, I better be smoking.
Dick Gregory, real handsome guy. He rock a suit on stage, smoke a cigarette on stage. There's a few comics that look real suave when they do it. They time themselves with this cigarette to say a funny joke, punchline hits, and he was one of the guys that just did it.
You see, I'm not one of these guys, anytime the cops grab me, I holler, you doing this just because I'm colored, although sometime it'll work, you know.
If you go back early in his career, there's clearly jokes, but it's not just, guy walks into a bar and, no, it's beyond a joke.
When you stop and think, football's a fair sport for my people. Only sport in the world a Negro can chase a white man and 40,000 people stand up and cheer him.
It was very different from Red Fox or Slappy White or Nipsey Russell, who were like reigning black comedians up until that time.
It really made me angry when your lights went out here in New York.
The Mildred Gaddis Show takes this day, and we honor the life and legacy of the great Dick Gregory. I want to take a moment here, and Norris, please stand by, because your point of view is so important to us. We want to thank Grover McCants, Kanata Sr., Mary Bailey, Patricia Washington, Eileen Love, Patricia Terrell, Nana Ajoa Akoto, George Long Jr. for weighing in and responding to us on Facebook. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Compelling talk you can count on. This is the Mildred Gaddis Show on 102.7 WPZR.
Over the weekend, the great Dick Gregory, at the age of 84, doing exactly what he enjoyed most, and that was speaking, was scheduled to be in Atlanta, Georgia. Norris, thank you so much.
Good morning, Mildred.
Hi. Can you speak a little louder, please?
As a child, back before Johnny Carson took over the Tonight Show, Jack Parr was the host, and he would have black singers and comedians to come on the show, but they could never sit on the couch with him. And they wanted Dick Gregory to come on the show, and he said, the only way I can come on your show is if I can sit on the couch. Well, they decided that he was important enough to him to come on the show, and they allowed him to sit on the couch. And after that, that broke the color line down, and all black performers were able to sit on the couch with Jack Parr. And that's just one of the many things that Dick Gregory did. My daddy used to say that he was cracking and facking, and I grew to learn that meant he was telling jokes, but he's telling the truth. And that's what he did throughout his career.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Norris. The first time Dick Gregory was there, he was not allowed to sit on the couch.
Dick Gregory, real handsome guy. Rock a suit on stage, smoke a cigarette on stage. There's a few comics that look real suave when they do it. They time themselves with their cigarette, say a funny joke, punchline hits, and he was one of the guys that just did it.
You see, I'm not one of these guys, anytime the cops grab me, I holler, you doing this just because I'm colored, although sometime it'll work, you know.
If you go back early in his career, there's clearly jokes. But it's not just, guy walks into a bar and, no. It's beyond a joke.
When you stop and think, football is a fair sport for my people. Only sport in the world a Negro can chase a white man and 40,000 people stand up and cheer him.
It was very different from Red Fox or Slappy White or Nipsey Russell, who were like reigning black comedians up until that time.
It really made me angry when your lights went out here in New York that Tuesday night and you blamed it on us by calling it a blackout.
He was a social satirist, something people had never seen in the covering of this dark brown skin.
All the lights was out in New York, and I fell on my knees and I prayed. I said, please, God, let Governor Wallace be in New York tonight.
And I say segregation now.
Trapped on an elevator with 17 black Muslims.
By the early 1960s, Dick Gregory was building a rep in black nightclubs around Chicago with edgy riffs about race.
Because back in my hometown, we had what you call a friendly Ku Klux Klan. Oh, yeah, they'd come to your house to burn the cross. If they didn't have no matches, they'd knock on your door and ask you for a pack.
Now, the word gets out. There's a funny dude down at the Esquire.
Well, the neighborhood I lived in was so beat up and run down. Had it not been for the Ku Klux Klan burning crosses on our front lawn, we never would have had no street lights.
And then white college students started coming in. Negro neighborhood.
You didn't clap. That's right. You must clap when I come out. If there's any resentment in the house at all, get up, burn your cross, and leave.
I met him in a club in Chicago called the Esquire Club. He was a comic there, and also he played the drums.
Her name was Lillian. She was 20 years old, from Willard, Ohio, the daughter of a Baptist minister.
He came over to our table and talked to us and chatted a bit. I just liked the way he looked, and I just liked his comedy. And then we started dating, and sort of one thing led to another there.
They were married February 2nd, 1959. Michelle was born March 28th, the first of 11 children.
I said, well, I guess I'm on my way. I was making $10 a night, 3 nights a week, $1,500 a year with a wife and a family.
It was really pretty hard for a while. He needed some money to buy some suits for some of his routines. I got a loan for him. I think it was household finance or something like that.
I would never go to work without a suit. 3 shows, I had 3 different suits.
Gregory was driven to succeed, but in 1959, the playing field was far from level.
And I've looked at Jack Paul for 5 years. It's my man, baby. I'm saying this to myself. Nobody has ever been that powerful on TV.
Glad to see you here this evening. You couldn't get tickets for The Price is Right, huh?
Billy Eckstine, one of the great singers of all time. We sitting at the bar talking. Billy Eckstine, see, all a Negro can do on the show is do your act, but you're not permitted to sit down on the couch, and I didn't know that, and I was so hurt. I've been looking at him for 5 years and didn't see that. I walked all the way home from the club that night, 95 blocks, crying.
After that night, Gregory vowed to make it on his own terms. He landed a gig at the Roberts Show Club in Chicago, home to artists like Sammy Davis Jr., Miles Davis, and Sarah Vaughan. It raised Gregory's profile and was a springboard to bookings nationwide.
This black man sitting on the stage, and he knows the name of the governor of Utah. He knows the name of the governor of Michigan. He knows the politics.
I like politics. I'm from Chicago, where we vote a lot.
He knows if they're left wing, right wing, and people are laughing.
One thing about the West Coast, you have dirty politics out here. We don't have this. I read in the paper, Brown is pink and Nixon's yellow. This did my soul so much good to know that 2 colored fellows is running for the governor of this state.
Then, back in Chicago, Gregory got his lucky break, a chance to perform at the Playboy Club.
The south side of Chicago was black, and the nightclubs were black. And I tended to frequent some of those clubs, and that's how we discovered Dick.
When a comedian abruptly walked out on a steady gig, Dick was called in as a replacement.
It was a blizzard. I had no money to take a cab, so I'm running, slipping and sliding, and I turned, and about 7 or 8 blocks away, I see that huge Playboy sign. I know where it is. Ran up the steps, turned to the right, jumped up on the stage at 8 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock, I was still talking.
It was very, very contemporary because he dealt with segregation from the other side, from the black point of view.
And they loved it. So where y'all from? Alabama. Oh, I spent 20 years in Alabama one day, you know.
I got a little hungry, so I walked in a restaurant, which was the wrong restaurant. And 3 brothers walked in. If you ever been to Mississippi, you know 3 brothers I'm talking about. Clue, Cluck, and Clay. Big one walked up and kicked my chair. He said, boy, whatever you do to that chicken down here, we gonna do to you. I feel so good, I looked at him and told him, y'all line up, and I kissed it.
He went down and did the show, and that just opened the door.
Hefner was so impressed, he hired Gregory for $250 a week.
Time magazine wrote this story about this Negro working at the Playboy Club, and Jack Paul read it.
After a while, people would call our little apartment and inquire about him coming to do the Jack part.
This is Mr. So-and-so, I'm Jack Paul's producer. Mr. Paul wants you on the show tonight. And I said, well, I don't want to work the Paul show. So I hung up. The phone rang again. It's Jack Paul. Dick Gregory's Mr. Paul. I know you think this can't be true. That's why you hung up. No, I believe it's true. I don't want to work the show. Because the Negro can't sit on the couch. He said, well, come on in, I'll let you sit on the couch.
Yeah, well, what kind of a car you got?
A Lincoln, naturally.
Oh, well, that's... That's the least you could do,
That's
you know.
right.
I went from $1,500 a year to $3 million the next 18 months. That's how powerful it was to sit on the couch, huh?
It broke the color line and changed everything very, very quickly.
So many people called in NBC in New York, the circuits blew out. I went back once a week for the next 17 weeks.
We all went to New York together, sat in the audience and heard him do his thing and sat on the couch. And that sure led to many, many other things.
Dick was not rising when I came in. Dick had risen.
It was the hippest thing. I was like something new on the planet.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most talked about personality in show business today, Dick Gregory.
You heard what Bobby Kennedy said, that 30 years from this year, a Negro can become president. Can't you just imagine me president? And you decide to call the White House, and I pick up the phone and say, hey, baby!
Fans who couldn't get into Gregory's shows bought his live comedy albums. He made 9 of them in the 1960s.
10 months ago in Chicago, one night, walking downtown, there's a white cat walking toward me. As I approached him very nervously, he said, mister, you're not going to bother me, you're not going to hurt me, are you, mister? I said, no, boy.
It was dangerous to talk bad about white people in public. Dick was able to do it in such a loving, kind manner that he got white people to laugh at themselves.
He said, mister, you don't carry no gun or no knife? I said, no, gun or no knife. He said, mister, you mean you don't do no shooting or cutting? I said, no, shooting or cutting. He said, you mean you really dedicated to nonviolence, boy?
He was a provocateur in the best sense, that he would throw a hand grenade of a joke that would explode in laughter, but then the smoke would be full of ideas.
It wasn't long before the reverberations began to drift south, for the smoke was real. In 1961, Gregory got a call from civil rights leader Medgar Evers, asking him to come to Mississippi.
While many of us sat someplace and read about it, and we were far away from it, Dick went to it.
He was an inspiration for the people, the boots on the ground.
At the beginning of the movement, when I move in, I felt just like the soldiers moving. They sent new divisions in for this new invasion. That's how I felt when I went south.
If you were out on the street on our side, you could be shot, beat, killed, jailed, any of it, right? There wasn't any such thing as a protected celebrity.
The more I went down, I didn't mind dying. I lost my fear. Not thinking about dying, but if I have to, I will. Huh?
But for Gregory's partners in show business, fear is exactly what began to set in.
I was in this coffee house near this man. He says, I manage Dick Gregory, but Dick has gone crazy, and he's canceling all these dates, and I need a Negro comedian.
Bill Cosby said, at that time, I can't do what that guy's doing. I don't want someone to bust a catch bottle over my head.
Dick decided that being a famous comedian was just a part of his life, and that his true heart was in this political movement and the struggle.
Once he got introduced with Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, that was his life.
We're coming to a time now when you can't worry about jail.
He put his ability to get bookings in jeopardy.
I mean, Dick was not paid to come. He may have been asked to come, but he wasn't paid.
Dick, you have spent considerable money in this campaign, haven't you?
The only time I was really bothered, I lost my car. Got to the point where I couldn't keep the notes up on the car, and because I missed too many jobs. So, which you don't mind, because we're at the point now where we're going to have to save this country.
There were times when the mortgage was due. He would take that entire mortgage check and use it to finance a demonstration.
Compelling talk you can count on. This is the Mildred Gaddis Show on 102.7 WPZR.
But life will wake me whenever people feel the road's too long, and they'll need some music. I want to come back as a song. Lives will be broken, love unspoken. Somewhere a child will feel that hope is gone. And one lonely morning, I want to come back as a song. Lovers, you need a way to say the things you just can't say. I'll be someday, if I'm appealing, play back my life with feeling. A man gets older, the world turns colder, 'cause everybody says his work is done. If deep inside him something is crying to be young. Lovers, you need a way to say the things you just can't say. Someday, and if I'm appealing, play back my life with feeling. A man gets older, the world turns colder, 'cause everybody says his work is done. If deep inside him something is crying to be young, it's me just waiting to be sung. I want to come back as a song. Just waiting to be sung.
The late, great Dick Gregory. He was an entrepreneur, a civil rights activist, a comedian, and author. He was born October 12, 1932. He died August 19th, 2017. He attended the Southern Illinois University, born in St. Louis, died in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
Performed, mainly to raise money for the cause. And when he couldn't join the marchers down south, he sent his wife.
He would say, okay, well, Lil, you got to go. I was actually pregnant with twins, and I went to Selma, Alabama, and stayed in jail for 2 weeks.
She wasn't just Dick Gregory's wife. She was Dick Gregory. She had real power.
My mother was his rock and continues to be his rock. He doesn't know how to move without my mom.
She's one of the unsung heroes of the movement. She marched pregnant. She was thrown in jail pregnant.
Everywhere I went to jail, she went to jail. It wasn't about the children. It's about liberation. You know what it's like being king at home. Wife and a family. And the phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning. Say, nigga, we gonna blow up your house and kill all y'all. And you wake the children up, and a little child sees a look on your face he's never seen before. Sees a look on his mother's face he's never seen before.
All sorts of people would call our number. People would call and say the most nasty, horrible things.
During these times, when people mean to drive by and set your house on fire, here's Dick Gregory with a listed phone number. Even Ali has an unlisted phone number.
In March of 1963, Gregory celebrated the birth of his first son in Chicago. But like a soldier in wartime, he was back in Mississippi with Medgar Evers within days.
Well, he was my contact person for Dick. And I had to call him to tell Dick that the baby had passed.
It was Medgar who delivered the news.
He said, you have to call her. I think your son is sick. I can't do nothing about that now. If I go on the front line of battle, I can't leave. I got to keep shooting, keep moving up that hill. He said, Greg, your son had just died. He carried me to the airport, and I hugged him. He said, I won't be here when they hit you, man, but it's been a pleasure to die with you. Love you, man.
It was 2 weeks later that Medgar was murdered. Just the odds of that, you know, but it was a very sad time.
And I get home, and my wife is a basket case. She's holding the blanket, just holding the blanket. The phone rings. Dick Gregory? Yeah. You that nigger comedian? I said, that's me. I just heard on the radio that your son died. I just wanted to tell you I'm glad. Would you say that to my wife? And I could tell when he said it. She dropped that blanket and jumped on me, and I went all the way out the room. But that broke her. We got a job to do. You can't do it like that. God damn it, you're gonna be a soldier, you're gonna be a soldier, you're gonna be a wimp.
Dick and Lillian soldiered on. On August 28, 1963, Gregory joined Martin Luther King in the historic March on Washington.
I would like to introduce very briefly the comedian friend from the jail, Mr. Dick Gregory. Pleasure being here, and nice being out of jail. And I'm very confused this year because I never thought I'd see the day I would give out more fingerprints and autographs.
In October, Reverend King asked Gregory to join him in a voter registration drive in Alabama. Dick's phone began ringing the night before his flight.
The operator said, you know, President Kennedy trying to reach Dick Gregory, call back this number. And of course, when he came home, he had been out and he had been drinking.
I came home Sunday drunk. My wife, you know, first time she ever raised her voice at me. The President of the United States been calling you all night. I said, who cares? I do.
He said, I'll call him tomorrow, you know. And I said, no, you're going to call him right now.
They wake him up, and the conversation is, Dick, how are you? How's the family? Okay. Do me a favor, don't go to Alabama. Dr. King is wrong. And I said, shall I call you Mr. President or call you boy? As wrong as you think King is, and I'll grant you he's wrong, and as right as you think you are, he's righter than you. and you wronger than him. I'm going. And I hung up.
I'm standing on the corner, and this one guy's running down the street with a couch on his back. So I said, hey, buddy, are you a looter? And he says, no, I'm a psychiatrist on my way to a house call.
But for Gregory, the jokes and violence were wearing thin. In Watts, he was shot in the leg while trying to defuse a standoff between crowds and police.
What are conditions like? I don't know the community of Watts.
Unemployment is very high. The police brutality rate is very high. Schooling is a very low standard. Living conditions are very crowded. These Negroes aren't throwing bricks just for the sake of throwing bricks.
In 1966, Gregory decided to personally take on the challenge of reforming America's cities.
This morning, I'd like to formally announce that I am a candidate for mayor of Chicago as an independent write-in.
Mayor Daley was probably one of the most evil. I mean, you have to go all the way back to the Roman Empire to meet somebody as evil and as vicious as he was.
Here in Chicago, a sincere effort has not been made to solve the social problems and the problems of poverty.
Now we're going to move across the street, and at that point, we'll meet the confrontation. We have a legal right to go to my house.
We marched. The white folks attacked us. And to see black cops beating up white folks to protect us.
Gregory lost the vote in the spring of '67, but by January of 1968, he launched a bigger campaign.
You don't think Mr. Kennedy or Mr. McCarthy could help the Negroes in this country, for example? I think the issue is bigger than the Negroes. I think the struggle now in America is the struggle of young people against an old, corrupt system.
If we all woke up tomorrow morning and, someone said, it's up to you, you fix it, how would you do it?
Well, one, I would do away with capital punishment. Two, I would set up a program to see to it that no man in America went to bed hungry. To get rid of basic fears. 100 years ago, when I was a slave by force, I ran away from white people like a slave's supposed to do. Today, a black man moving to a white neighborhood, they run away from us like a slave's supposed to do. Who is free among us?
I got a feeling, Dick, that someday, long after they stop remembering your funny lines, they'll be thinking about what your serious lines were, too.
I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you.
It was on the campaign trail that Gregory saw Martin Luther King for the last time.
It's in Chicago, we doing this big show, and somebody touched me. I looked around, it's King, he said, they're going to kill me, aren't they? I didn't know what to say. I said, Doc, they're going to kill us all. Better you than me. Come on, we got a show to do. 3 weeks later, pow.
Anybody with half a brain and a soul was heartbroken and outraged. Dr. King, then Robert Kennedy. It's like, how much can we take?
The times changed Gregory as a man and an artist.
His fellow Negro comics say his dedication has blunted his humor, that he's lost his sense of satire, that he's now more angry than funny.
I've been having, so many mixed emotions about what's going on in Vietnam, but I tell you one thing, I was really sorry when we carried it to the UN, why let a bunch of foreigners meddle in Viet?
People are really angry at the pace of change. So his comedy reflected the world he went through, and it changed along with the times.
At that time, his main income was doing the colleges all around the country.
He was the #1 speaker on the American campuses. He could have done 200-300 dates in a year.
I can't even begin to count how many times he's turned down television series. He would say, well, that will interrupt my lecture circuit. I won't be able to communicate with the people. Because when you go to do a series, you read a script.
Compelling talk you can count on. This is the Mildred Gaddis Show on 102.7 WPZR.
a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the dealers humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. So people get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and board 'em. There's hope for all among those love the most. There ain't no room for the hopeless sinner who would hurt all mankind just to save his own. Believe me now, have pity on those whose chances grow thinner, for there's no hiding place against the kingdom's throne. So people get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the Jesus humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord.
In his later years, Dick Gregory became known for supporting various conspiracy theories about the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and John and Robert Kennedy, the crack cocaine epidemic, and the 9/11 terrorist attacks. He also turned away from stand-up for a time, preferring to stay out of clubs where liquor was served, but he later made his way back to performing. In 1996, he starred in the critically well-received off-Broadway production, Dick the Controversial Comedian.
The speeches, of course, were part of a bigger crusade, this time to end the war in Vietnam. In late 1969, Dick Gregory put his body on the line one more time in a hunger strike against war.
So the only way I can demonstrate a moral commitment to the young, beautiful kids in this country is by making this self-sacrifice.
The greatest laugh you ever heard in your life come from friendly friends and family members. And it's a good feeling to see people laughing.
I put some spinach in front of one of my daughters. She said, I don't want no spinach. I said, you better eat that spinach. I know 10 million Chinese would love to have that spinach. She said, name me too.
During the 1970s, Dick Gregory did his best to help raise his 10 children, but he wasn't always around.
I can't tell you how many times Dick Gregory went to jail in order to get Nelson Mandela out of jail.
His fight never ended. Human rights, I mean, that as a movement is never ending.
Out of the year, my father was only home maybe about 60, 90 days max when I was a child.
We didn't always understand the sacrifice. As we grew older, we understood, wow, that fire, that light in his eye. He's standing for something.
Gregory's crusading took a turn in the 1970s as he threw himself behind a new issue, nutrition. His protest fasts in the late 1960s had spurred an interest in diet and health, along with the recognition that his own body was falling apart.
Dick Gregory was fat. Dick Gregory was smoking 2-3 packs of cigarettes a day, drinking a quart of liquor a day, and was seriously obese.
Most folks didn't know pork and all that grease and sugar give you sugar diabetes and high blood pressure. It tastes good. And so that's when I had to reevaluate my life.
In 1984, Gregory began promoting a diet plan, weight loss supplements, and common sense approaches to health.
I love who? I love who? I love who?
Take care of your body. Water, 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 water.
I do remember on the cassette tape I used to listen to that Dick Gregory said, drink 8-ounce glasses of water every day. And I still do that because Dick Gregory said that.
It can't be cold water. And it should be bottled water that's purified.
Dick's interest in nutrition, I'm certain, was motivated by his witnessing all those years totally abject poverty.
We've been eating bad for hundreds of years. You know, there's no Whole Foods in the hood. There's very few choices. And the fact that he took nutrition, it's one of the most basic things to improve the quality of someone's life.
It wasn't a fad with him. It was bordered on a religious mission.
He came to our home in Massachusetts, and we asked for his food requirements, and he just wanted to eat raw onions and drink water.
Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Dick Gregory.
You white folks are about the luckiest people on the planet. When you finally get you a Negro president, you get a nice, behaved Negro. When he came out here to Arizona, your governor stuck her finger in his face, and he was just so nice and polite. If I'd have been president, she stuck her finger in my mouth, I'd have ate it. Give me some barbecue and some mumbo sauce.
The United States of America will never be well until it deals with its racism. Period. Dick Gregory will say it in a different way, and you will laugh.
He put his life out there. Every one of his jokes comes from his soul.
If you see Dick Gregory on the street, take your hat off, salute him, tell him you love him, and let him know that he didn't do it in vain.
This is his neighborhood. Get in there with Mr. Gregory.
I don't think that'll pay him back, but it's a start.
We was turtles. Hard on the outside, soft on the inside, and willing to stick your neck out. That's it. I'm 80 years old. Been married 54 years. And when the press says, what do you think about same-sex marriage? I'm for it. Let them get married and see what we've been going through.
I just wanna make it to heaven. Just wanna make it in. Oh, I just wanna cross that river. My Lord, I wanna be free from sin. Oh, I just want my name written. Oh Lord, written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Yeah, yeah. And when this life is over, just wanna have eternal life.
I certainly hope that you all have enjoyed this special tribute to the late Dick Gregory. I want to thank Markel and Dominique, my intern, and my producer today on the show. Thank you all so much. I want to thank everybody who posted on Facebook, on the Mildred Gaddis page and the Mildred Gaddis show page. We are most appreciative. This was our first of 2 specials regarding Mr. Dick Gregory. Have a great day. I'm Mildred Gaddis.
Compelling talk you can count on.
We can say water's a right. Go down that river and pick up a bucket of water. That's your right.
From right here in Detroit.
Stay tuned. We're turning up the heat.
And the nation. Going more in depth with the stories that affect our lives.
As much as we say or think that we're being inclusive, the reality is we're not.
This is the Mildred Gaddis Show on 102.7 WPZR.
Here's an inspirational moment from Pastor Marvin L. Winans of Perfecting Church.
Jonah 2:8 states, "They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercies." It's easier to tell the truth. This is a text of scripture that has been ringing in my heart and spirit for weeks. Now, I can't explore all of the truth it espouses in this moment, but allow me to divulge this bit of information. Jonah now finds himself in the belly of a whale. He has to make a decision as what to do. Do I confess my wrong, or do I hold on to a lie? The recent movie Focus, starring Will Smith, he plays the role of a scam artist. He tells his female counterpart that if she is ever caught, die with the lie. Sad to admit, but many of us have adopted this philosophy. We would rather die with the lie than confess the truth. Somehow we have convinced ourselves that there is more honor in holding on to a lie. The problem is when you do that, you forsake the mercy that comes with truth. There is a proverb that states, mercy and truth have met together. We must learn how to trust in the power of truth and know that mercy comes along with it. If you want to clear the air and have a fresh start, it begins with truth. Tell the truth, even if it hurts. Tell the truth, even if it's embarrassing. Tell the truth, even if you've plagiarized the First Lady's speech. Why? Because it's easier to tell the truth.
You've just heard the inspirational moment from Pastor Marvin L. Winans of Perfecting Church on the Mildred Gaddis Show.
Thinking about the world, looking at the nation. Suicide, genocide, homicide. 3 words come to mind. Times are changing, yeah. No more rumors, there are wars going on. Twisted doctor, scientists making clones. Economy got some backs against the wall. People dying for no reason at all. People of God don't even read their Bibles. There's no faith, no trust in the word. But everybody seems to be quoting scripture. It's just another word they heard. Pastors leaving pulpits cause they're tired. It's all based on how we feel. Overheard 2 people speaking the other day. One said that God's not real, but I'm just one of them more people who's got a hold on. Sometimes I can't see, but I still believe He's taking care of me. I'm just one of them old people. God's got a hold on. And I believe, yeah. I believe, yeah.
Compelling talk you can count on. This is the Mildred Gaddis Show on 102.7 WPZR.
Good Monday morning, Detroit. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Monday it is here on the 21st of August, 78 degrees in the city of Detroit. Look for a stray shower or thunderstorm after 3 o'clock today. Now, everybody knows that today is the day of the eclipse. If you're going to choose to watch it, make sure that your eyes are protected. You know the rules. I won't go down the list and tell you about everything that needs to be done. Over this weekend, a giant tree in the forest has fallen.
Political activist and comedian Dick Gregory passed away this weekend at a hospital in Washington, D.C. He was 84. Here's Roxana Saberi.
For Dick Gregory, comedy was more than about making people laugh.
If them cops that's shooting your children, if they shot dogs like that, white folks would burn the police station down all over the world. Huh?
He began breaking barriers by appealing to white crowds with witty remarks about racism in America.
But there are a lot of good advantages riding in the back of a bus. Next time you get on the bus, you knows where that emergency door is located.
A native of St. Louis, Missouri, Gregory's first big break as a comedian came in 1961 when he filled in at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Club in Chicago. Gregory went on to become a national sensation. The Tonight Show with Jack Paar had him on as a guest, but as Gregory told CBS Sunday Morning this June, that was only after he demanded to be invited to sit for a chat.
White comics could sit on the couch. A black comic couldn't.
Are you a good audience tonight? And treat me nice, because with President Kennedy's new housing bill, I might be your neighbor now.
Gregory soon moved his activism from the stage to the streets to rally for civil rights and against the Vietnam War and police brutality. He was still using satire for social justice when he fell ill earlier this month. On Facebook this weekend, his family announced his death, caused by an aneurysm set in motion by what one of his sons described as years of severe fasting for social change. Gregory was 84. Roxana Saberi for CBS News, New York.
Dick Gregory was born in 1932 in St. Louis, Missouri. He got his big break performing as a stand-up comedian at the Playboy Club in the early 1960s. Known for his sophisticated, layered humor that took on racial issues of the day, Dick Gregory became a comedy headliner and a trailblazer for other African-American comedians, including Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. He also participated as an activist in the civil rights movement and eventually ran for political office. He even ran for president. You all may not know that. He ran for mayor of the city of Chicago. In his later years, however, he worked as a lecturer and pursued his interest in health and fitness. This past weekend, Dick Gregory was scheduled to be in Atlanta to speak. At the age of 84, he was still pursuing justice in America. We're going to go to Reverend Charles Williams, Jr., who is the pastor of the historic King Solomon Baptist Church here in the city of Detroit. This morning we talked to him, of course, as pastor of that church and as president of Michigan's National Action Network chapter. How are you today, Pastor Williams?
I'm doing very well, Mildred, and thank you for having me. Certainly, this is a giant, as you said, who has trailblazed the way for so many who we see today, whether it's the Kevin Harts or the Damon Wayans. He did it. He paved the way in Clubhouse. He paved the way on the stage. But he also opened up the door of making sure that there was relevance to the words that you spoke, whether they were making you laugh or making you cry. And so we certainly appreciate him. I had the opportunity in my life to have spent time with him on more than a few occasions. But one occasion I can think of is we were in Washington, D.C., and myself and Sam Riddle were at a protest, and we decided to take arrest and civil disobedience. And I never seem to forget that someone came down from the corporation that we were protesting and say if they would meet with us, we could stop protesting. Somebody would come down and they would meet with us. And as we were huddled in a circle trying to decide what we were going to do, I never forget the words of Dick Gregory. He said, don't send me up there by myself, because if you send me by myself, I'm going to sell out. And ever since he said that, it was meant to be a joke, but at the same time, I think it was a lot of seriousness to the importance of why we must be together in this movement and why we must work together. We shared a jail cell together. We shared a stage together, and he's come here for me in the city of Detroit, as well as you know, the Detroit Association of Black Organizations. He's been here for many, and we appreciate him. We love him, and we shall never forget him, and make sure we lift his name up, not just by calling his name, but doing the work that he's trailblazed for us.
And he's done it in a way that is unmatched. Later this morning, as we honor the life and legacy of Dick Gregory, we're going to share with you some major sacrifices this man made. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was 17 years old. I was a freshman at Texas Southern University. Had no idea, Pastor Williams, that we would, as years would progress, have some opportunity, we'd become friends and have the opportunity to work together. He was a stand-up brother.
That's right.
He called it and he loved his people. He didn't just love black people. He was passionately in love with black people. And he found injustice to be an enemy of humanness. And until the very end, he challenged it. He called it very, very bold. I think that very few people really understand or understood the depth of Dick Gregory.
Go
ahead.
He was very prophetic. I mean, I know we use those terms, prophetic, for someone who is a minister or a pastor or what have you, but he was very prophetic about many of the issues and many of the things that we see happening to this very day. And he's had some pronouncements of some things that'll be happening in the future, and I'll certainly be looking out for them. But when you say he loved his people, he really did, because never in my lifetime, honestly, did I ever think I would end up being friends or even acquaintances with someone who, to me, had such a tall stature. But for the times that I were able to spend time with him, it was almost like he considered himself my buddy, or we were buddies. I mean, he considered us close, and I always was like, you know, when I would walk up to him or see him, and I was traveling over the road, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. You'd speak to him and say, "Hey, how you doing, Dick?" You know, da 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 da, and then he would say, "Hey, how you doing? How's the family?"
I was getting ready to say he always wanted to know, how's the family? He wanted to know how your family was before he would even continue the conversation. And every time I interviewed him, that was the case. You know, I spent 10 years in St. Louis during my career, and that is where he and his brothers and sisters were born. And thank God that the people in St. Louis did recognize and love the native son for who and what he was. They really did. You know, we have giants among us. You got John Conyers and people in Detroit take him for granted. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, they have no idea of what this man means to the world. In St. Louis, thank goodness, and Dick Gregory understood this. They really, really, really did love him. They honored him, and they cherished the contribution that he made to the world.
Wow.
Which makes all the difference. Which makes all the difference in the world, let me say. Well, I had to check in with you to get your mindset. I need to tell you this, and this probably comes as no surprise to you. The chairman of our company, Miss Kathy Hughes, we chatted about him the last time I saw her, and they were very close friends. She shared with me that she had been getting on his case about allowing somebody to travel with him. He did. He refused. She said, you know, Mildred, at this time, he really needs somebody to travel with him. He never did. He always, you know, he didn't need an entourage. He didn't need an assistant. When you saw Dick Gregory in the airport, you saw Dick Gregory, and he was always Dick Gregory.
And and I know, you said time's winding, but I'll tell you this: I picked him up from the airport on a couple of occasions, and I picked him up with the expectation if he's gonna have somebody with him, and it's gonna be a bunch of luggage. And I picked him up from the airport, and it was a little bag, and he was standing outside waiting on me. No fanfare, no this, no that. I mean, it's amazing.
It's interesting.
The kind of person that he was in terms of just making sure he kept a certain sense of humility, but he was so tall, he was so giant, he was so big for us, and we certainly honor him, appreciate him, and never will forget him.
It's amazing you tell that airport story because I have almost the same story. There were a group of us who were students at Texas Southern in the School of Communications, and he came to campus to deliver an address, right? So my professor, my communications professor, Holly Brown, I will never ever for Holly Brown Hogerbrooks, sent us to the airport to pick him up. Okay, I'm a non-driver. And I don't know if you are old enough to remember what a Yugo was. This was a little bitty, little car, really comfortable for 2, maybe 3 people max, okay? So 3 of us went to the airport to get him, and he joked all along about, how small this car was. But here's a funny thing. He always, and until the day he left us, he always carried papers with him. He wasn't consumed with he wasn't consumed with technology. It's as if the house was going to burn down, he did not want his papers burning down with the house. He always had his evidence, his proof of what his message with him. And that's a memorable thing. Pastor Charles Williams, president of the National Action Network, thank you so very much in joining us in this tribute to the late, great Dick Gregory.